Watchers call. Whispers from the eternal void.
72 hours the prayer bells of Hive Tertius have rung in perfect six-part harmony, yet the sound emerges from inside the rockcrete walls themselves, while the bell towers remain motionless as tombstones. I am Interrogator Severin Caney, Ordo Hereticus, and this impossibility is why my Valkyrie cuts through the ash-choked atmosphere of Mordian Secundus with Squad Umbral, and Tech Adept Zephyr strapped in beside me. The machine spirits sing liturgical responses to prayers that haven't been spoken yet, creating temporal echoes in the Vox networks that violate every principle of causality and sacred mechanics. Quarantine Protocol. Omega expires at dawn when the orbital defense grid cycles, leaving a 17-minute window before automated systems lock down the entire world. Mechanicus auger arrays detect a 47% increase in localized warp fluctuations every 6 hours, a geometric progression that paints reality in increasingly unstable hues. The number 6 appears everywhere, frost patterns on our gunnels that form and melt in hexagonal arrays, hex stamps on refuel orders, the precise intervals between harmonic pulses that make my teeth ache. In his voice, we find silence, words that whisper themselves unbidden from my lips. The ash storm tears at our hull in sheets of gray particulate matter, each gust carrying the metallic taste of industry and 10,000 years of relentless production. Through the reinforced viewports, Hive Tertius rises like a mountain of devotion and obligation, its spires disappearing into storm clouds that never break. The pressure changes as we descend, my ears popping with each atmospheric layer, while vibrations that shouldn't exist make the Valkyrie's armored skin resonate like the soundboard of some massive instrument. The walls vibrate like vocal cords, conducting harmonies through hull ribs, as if our aircraft were throat tissue breathing sacred words. Squad Umbral maintains professional discipline, but I notice Sergeant Voss counting pulses in the deck, plating with his boot sole, keeping time to rhythms he doesn't acknowledge knowing. Trooper Maxim's fingers drum against his hellgun stock in patterns of 6 beats. The metallic taste of ozone grows stronger, coating tongues with the flavor of electrical discharge and sanctified oils. Tech Adept Zephyr's mechadendrites twitch in response to electromagnetic interference that follows no pattern her sensors can interpret, her augmetic eye whirring as data streams scream impossible readings. The Hive's communication arrays broadcast fragments of normal traffic, shift changes, cargo manifests, maintenance schedules, but underneath runs a constant harmonic undertone that makes every transmission sound like part of a greater composition. Vox traffic carries recordings from last week played by men already dead, while administratum manifests repeat themselves in loops of quotas fulfilled by phantom workers. The Astronomican's distant pressure, normally a steady ache behind my eyes, feels muffled as if wrapped in felt and sung to sleep. Our Valkyrie's machine spirit begins harmonizing with signals from below, engine notes shifting to match frequencies that emerge from the Hive's depths. Sergeant Voss adjusts thrust controls that respond with musical precision rather than mechanical obedience. The aircraft functions perfectly, yet functions as an instrument in an orchestra whose conductor remains invisible. Through the forward blister, lightning crawls laterally across the ash plains, forkless, following staff lines only we can see. The Hive's superstructure pulses with its own rhythm, buttresses and support structures expanding and contracting as though the entire complex breathes. Sensor readings confirm structural integrity, yet my eyes insist the rockcrete walls move like living tissue. Gothic architecture blends with industrial functionality in proportions that seem wrong, as if the building itself has learned to sing and reshaped its geometry accordingly. The prayer bells in the spires remain frozen with rhyme, their bronze surfaces green with verdigris, yet their phantom ringing fills the electromagnetic spectrum with frequencies that make reality feel thin. Tech adept Zephyr's data slate spits readings that violate fundamental principles. Responses preempt requests, she clicks in binharic cadence. Machine spirits render amen before Ave. Her mechadendrites tick like rosary beads as she daubs incense across cogitator surfaces in symmetrical patterns of 6. The ship's auspex paints motes in the air like dust in a reliquary beam, each spark jittering to the same unheard rhythm that penetrates our bones and makes the deck plates whisper litanies back at us. Landing vectors guide us toward Arbite's precinct Fortress Gamma, a bastion positioned at the intersection of 3 major thoroughfares. The approach feels like sliding between wet pages as atmospheric processors struggle against sulfurous winds. Our pilot wrestles controls that vibrate with harmonic resonance, the craft bucking as grit screams along the fuselage in skittering musical notes. The cabin grows colder despite environmental controls, our breath ghosting in tight halos before the intakes devour them. 2 minutes to touchdown, though chronometers read 3. Voss's timing matches the hidden beat that counts down to something none of us understand. Squad Umbral checks seals and safeties while carapace armor rattles like wind chimes. I recite abjurations of dissent under my breath, ritual words that keep men alive, and hear my own responses echo through the intercom, a heartbeat early, my voice, but not yet mine. The Vox sigil blinks. Every unit on our network opens simultaneously. 6 voices take up the canticle of approach in perfect harmony, clear, disciplined, unmistakably ours. Not one of us is speaking. The song knows our names and sings them before we do. The Valkyrie's landing struts bite into scorched ferrocrete with a resonance that travels through Arbite's precinct Fortress Gamma's foundation like a struck bell, each vibration carrying harmonics that shouldn't exist in dead stone. Squad Umbral deploys with practiced efficiency, hellguns sweeping approach vectors while boots strike deck plating in rhythms that unconsciously match the Hive's 6-beat pulse. Sergeant Voss establishes perimeter security around our insertion point, his scarred jaw working as he counts something under his breath. The ash storm hammers against armored walls, each gust carrying particulate matter that tastes of burned promethium and sanctified oils grown thin with age. Tech adept Zephyr interfaces with the precinct's machine spirits through blessed connection ports that spark with unusual electrical discharge, her mechadendrites twitching as data streams carry impossible readings. The Hive's superstructure vibrates with subsonic frequencies that make my sternum ache and set every filling in my teeth ringing like tiny bells. Each pulse travels through rockcrete and plasteel like a heartbeat, through arterial walls, creating sympathetic resonance in equipment housings and weapon stocks that transforms our gear into unwilling instruments in an orchestra whose conductor remains hidden. Magos Explorator Thane awaits us in the command sanctum, his red robes rustling with mechanical precision, while servo skulls orbit his augmetic frame in patterns that mirror frost formations blooming across metal surfaces. His Vox grill emits binharic cant in measured intervals, but his mechadendrites twitch in synchronization with the Hive's harmonic pulses. Confessor Mordian stands beside him, Aquila clutched in hands that shake with barely controlled tension, his face bearing the hollow-eyed expression of those who have witnessed phenomena that challenge fundamental assumptions about reality's stability. Frost patterns form on exposed metal in perfect hexagonal arrays, crystalline structures that hold their geometry for precisely 6 seconds before melting into droplets that evaporate, without leaving moisture stains. The phenomenon repeats every 43 seconds, marking time to a rhythm that exists beneath conscious perception, yet demands acknowledgement from every living thing within its influence. A maintenance servitor in the corridor locks into position mid-task, its augmetic limbs rigid while optical sensors continue tracking movement, remaining motionless for exactly 6 heartbeats before resuming assigned duties. Interrogator Caney, Thane's Vox unit modulates with unusual harmonic overtones that make my Rosarius grow cold against my chest. The machine spirits sing without prompting. Servitor units freeze when resonance peaks exceed acceptable parameters. His optical sensors flicker with data streams that paint impossible readings across his visual cortex, measurements that violate fundamental principles of acoustic engineering and sacred mechanics. Confessor Mordian's voice carries spiritual exhaustion when he speaks, each word carefully measured against the harmonics bleeding through the fortress walls. The faithful hear responses to prayers they haven't yet offered. Autoquills write liturgical texts despite power disconnection. Sacred oils congeal into geometric patterns that mock natural law. He gestures toward a scribe's desk, where an unpowered writing implement continues inscribing high Gothic prayers across parchment, its movements precise and deliberate, despite the absence of any visible energy source. Squad Umbral establishes communication protocols with local Arbites forces, while I review tactical assessments bearing hexagonal service stamps that weren't present in original files. Every document carries the phrase 6 voices, 1 song, stamped in official seals that appear and disappear according to patterns, following no administrative logic. Equipment checks reveal minor anomalies in Vox unit calibration and Auspex sensitivity, each deviation measured in increments, suggesting systematic rather than random interference. The phenomenon began 79 hours ago. Thane explains through clicking mechadendrite gestures supplementing his vocalizations. Newly discovered archaeotech resonance chambers in the Hive's deepest foundations activated without authorization. The chambers predate Imperial colonization by approximately 8,000 years, their construction methods inconsistent with known human or Xenos architectural principles. His voice tries for clinical detachment, but tremors make the flat vowels brittle. The usual background hum of the Astronomicon feels muffled, its psychic pressure filtered through layers of harmonic interference that create dead zones in my consciousness, where the Emperor's light struggles to penetrate. The sensation resembles hearing underwater, sounds distorted by medium density that shouldn't exist in normal space. My Rosarius circuits struggle against electromagnetic fields, following no pattern sanctioned by the Mechanicus or approved by the Ecclesiarchy. Trooper Maxim reports successful interface with precinct security systems, while weapon servitors occasionally track targets that don't appear on any sensor array. Auto turrets pivot to follow movement patterns visible only to their machine spirits, creating fields of fire protecting against threats existing in dimensions parallel to our own. The fortress's defensive positions remain operational, yet something fundamental has shifted in the relationship between man and machine. Machine spirits respond to harmonic commands that haven't been transmitted. Thane continues, his augmetic limbs humming slightly out of tune with the precinct's vibration. Cogitator arrays process queries before input occurs. The chambers appear to be learning interrogator, learning our prayers, our protocols, our very thoughts. Tech adept Zephyr accesses security footage through blessed interface protocols, her mechadendrites dancing across input nodes as pic screens flicker to life. The displays show normal industrial activity throughout Manufactorum Delta 6, until timestamp 1542:17, when every worker simultaneously ceases their assigned tasks. 367 individuals turn toward the security camera with mechanical precision, their movements synchronized to the microsecond. Their mouths open and move in perfect unison, forming words with devotional intensity that makes my skin crawl. The audio feed captures only silence that feels heavier than sound, a pregnant void where human voices should be. Yet somehow, watching their synchronized lips, I know they're speaking my name, calling me deeper into the hive's resonant heart, where ancient chambers wait to teach me harmonies that predate humanity's first prayer. The sealed Mechanicus vaults descend through layers of rockcrete and blessed adamantium, like the throat of some vast cathedral, each level carrying us deeper into archaeological strata that predate imperial colonization by millennia. My interrogative cant echoes through corridors thick with recycled air that tastes of incense and machine oil, each breath coating our lungs with the accumulated devotion of 10,000 years. Magos Explorator Thane's Binharic whispers respond to my queries as his mechadendrites interface with access panels that haven't cycled in 3 centuries, their machine spirits awakening with reluctant hymns that harmonize disturbingly with the resonance bleeding through foundation walls. Temperature drops 6 degrees whenever harmonic pulses peak, our breath crystallizing in geometric patterns that mirror the frost arrays blooming across vault seals. Each portal bears 6-pointed inquisitorial rosettes carved into blessed metal, though many have been scratched out with crude fervor and replaced with cogwheel symbols, suggesting Mechanicus authority superseded original oversight. Squad Umbral maintains tactical formation through these sterile depths where only blessed machines and sanctified data should dwell. Yet something organic lurks beneath the sacred oils and technical precision. Access granted, Thane's Vox Grill modulates with unusual harmonic overtones as ancient cogitators hum to life at our approach. Their machine spirits stir from centuries of dormancy to display fragmentary records that paint disturbing pictures of heretical research conducted beyond imperial oversight. Tech-adept Zephyr's mechadendrites dance across input nodes while her augmetic eye processes information streams that make her optical servos whir with mechanical distress. The data cores reveal Project Quiet Choir, a joint Mechanicus Ordo Xenos operation dating to M35 that studied Xenos psychoacoustic weaponry recovered from a dead world designated terminus resonance. Fragmentary records reference synaptic resonance matrices designed for population pacification through subsonic manipulation, creating compliance without reliance on astropathic reinforcement. The clinical language describes precise frequencies required to induce devotion, fear, or absolute obedience, bypassing rational thought to directly influence limbic responses. Synaptic shadow properties observed in subject organs, Zephyr reports in Binharic cant, that carries undertones of theological uncertainty. Nullification of warp perturbations within localized fields. Integration with human architectural systems produces pacification effects. Her voice modulator struggles against interference patterns that make every word sound like part of a larger composition, whose meaning remains hidden behind encrypted liturgy. Confessor Mordian examines specimen jars lining vault walls, his Aquila trembling as he reads labels written in High Gothic mixed with technical notation that borders on innovation heresy. One container holds crystallized vocal cords that pulse with bioluminescent light, their organic structure preserved in sanctified solutions that glow with unnatural phosphorescence. The specimens respond to our presence by increasing luminosity in 6-beat patterns, matching the hive's harmonic rhythm, as if recognizing kindred consciousness in our living tissue. Archaeological Expedition Reports, M35.177, Subject World, Ephraim Null, Status Deceased, Acquisition, Bioacoustic Emitters of Unknown Provenance. Cross-reference, Ossuary Cities, Synaptic Harvesting Protocols. Warning, mimetic contamination risk in primary specimens. The preserved specimens grow more disturbing as we advance through successive vault levels. Crystallized nerve clusters pulse with electrical activity. Despite centuries of preservation, their bioluminescent displays creating patterns that hurt to observe directly. My Rosarius grows cold against my chest as we pass containers holding what labels identify as synaptic relay nodes and harmonic processing matrices harvested from creatures whose classification remains redacted behind Ordo-Xenos security protocols. The records describe attempts to weaponize alien neural interference patterns, I observe, my words echoing strangely in the vault's acoustically tuned dimensions, creating compliance through harmonic frequencies that induced religious ecstasy indistinguishable from genuine faith. Liturgical sequence deemed mimetic hazard. Playback restricted to Archmagos clearance. Content, synaptic resonance hymnal, 6-part harmony, psychological integration protocols. Thane's mechadendrites twitch as he accesses restricted data cores containing research notes referencing genestealer bioacoustic adaptations and synaptic resonance harvesting conducted under Joint Mechanicus Inquisition oversight. The files describe hybrid systems, combining biological and mechanical components in ways that violate fundamental principles of both flesh and steel, creating null zones where human consciousness became vulnerable to harmonic manipulation. The vault corridors stretch beyond architectural logic, their dimensions following acoustic principles rather than structural necessity. Each footstep echoes with harmonic overtones that suggest the walls themselves have been tuned to specific frequencies. Sergeant Voss reports unusual auspex readings as we track movement patterns that don't correspond to any known life signs, his scarred features tight with concentration. The final sealed vault requires combined authorization codes from both Mechanicus and inquisitorial sources. Its adamantium barriers inscribed with warnings in 17 languages, including Xenos scripts that make my eyes water to read directly. The air carries trace pheromones that trigger autonomic responses, despite our rebreather filtration, organic compounds that shouldn't exist in sterile archaeological storage. Inside 6 massive biomechanical organs rest in individual containment fields, each roughly the size of a grown man. Their surfaces glisten with preserved moisture that reflects light in impossible spectrums, ribbed with bioceramic rings and threaded with cables that pulse in rhythm with the hive's harmonic resonance. The labels read in stark high Gothic, laryngeal resonators, genestealer patriarch strain. Attached notes worn in bureaucratic neatness, synaptic shadow properties confirmed. Do not activate without Geller field protection. The organs pulse with their own 6-beat pattern, synchronizing with the hive's resonance and making the vault walls vibrate like the interior of some vast throat. As I lean closer to examine the nearest specimen, bioluminescent patterns flicker beneath its preserved surface, and I realize with growing horror that these aren't just specimens, they're components waiting for activation, laryngeal chambers designed to sing songs that should never be heard by human ears. The maintenance corridors leading deeper into Manufactorum Delta 6 carry us through atmospheric layers that shift from sterile archaeological chill to humid organic warmth that clings to exposed skin like a living membrane. Each descending level increases humidity until breathing feels like drawing air through wet cloth, the sensation of inhaling atmosphere so dense It resembles respiratory function within some vast biological system. Squad Umbral maintains tactical formation, while Auspex readings paint impossible atmospheric measurements, density fluctuations that violate fundamental principles of industrial ventilation engineering. The assembly line workers continue their assigned tasks with mechanical precision, yet subcutaneous nodules bulge along their necks, like swollen prayer beads embedded beneath pale flesh, arranged in hexagonal patterns that pulse with bioluminescent rhythms matching the hive's harmonic resonance. Their traditional work songs have transformed into complex harmonic structures that bypass rational analysis to directly assault auditory nerves, creating involuntary nausea and making my teeth ache with each precisely calculated note. Worker productivity remains within acceptable parameters. Tech adept Zephyr reports through Vox channels carrying increasing harmonic distortion, yet vocal patterns suggest modification beyond standard liturgical training. Her mechadendrites twitch as manufactorum cogitators respond with unusual enthusiasm to blessed interface protocols, their machine spirits humming with contentment that borders on organic satisfaction rather than mechanical compliance. Sergeant Voss maps ventilation systems through tactical overlays revealing architectural anomalies where air ducts follow organic curves rather than efficient engineering principles, their dimensions calculated for acoustic resonance instead of atmospheric circulation. Sudden pressure waves pulse through ductwork with rhythmic precision, creating vertigo among squad umbral and triggering nosebleeds as atmospheric density fluctuates beyond human tolerance. The metallic taste of ozone intensifies with each pulse, coating tongues with copper and sanctified oils grown thick with biological contamination. Magos Explorator Thane interfaces with valve spirits that respond to unauthorized harmonic commands rather than standard Mechanicus protocols, their mechanical consciousnesses singing binary hymns in frequencies that make blessed metal vibrate with sympathetic resonance. The machine spirits have learned new liturgies, he observes through Vox emissions carrying harmonic overtones. They respond to frequencies not sanctioned by the Omnissiah, yet their devotion remains absolute. The walls pulse rhythmically like cardiovascular tissue, rockcrete and plasteel, expanding and contracting with organic regularity that transforms the entire manufactorum into a living instrument. Each pulse sends vibrations through deck plating that make our equipment hum in harmony, creating an orchestra of blessed machinery singing compositions never written by human composers. Support beams bear carved inscriptions reading 6 throats, 6 truths in Gothic script that appears and disappears according to lighting angles and viewing perspective. Confessor Mordian attempts purifying prayers as we advance through increasingly organic corridors, his voice carrying traditional imperial litanies designed to cleanse corrupted spaces through sacred recitation. Yet the workers respond with antiphonal harmonies following alien mathematical structures, their voices blending in ways that make his familiar prayers sound discordant and somehow incomplete. The sacred words lose their power when filtered through harmonic frameworks designed for non-human consciousness, leaving Mordian visibly shaken as his spiritual authority proves ineffective against this particular corruption. A maintenance tunnel branches from the primary corridor, its entrance marked with warnings in 17 languages, including Xeno's script that makes my eyes water to read directly. The inscriptions reference a primary resonance cathedral located in the manufactorum's deepest levels, accessible only through blessed maintenance protocols requiring both Mechanicus and inquisitorial authorization. The tunnel descends at angles following acoustic principles rather than structural necessity, its walls slick with condensation that traces hexagonal patterns before evaporating without leaving moisture stains. Environmental hazards escalate as we approach the cathedral entrance, pressure waves slamming through air ducts with sufficient force to cause severe vertigo and spontaneous nosebleeds among unaugmented squad members. The very atmosphere seems to push against us, a physical manifestation of harmonic assault that makes each step feel like swimming through dense liquid. Worker pathologies intensify in proximity to the resonance source, their neck nodules growing more pronounced, while subcutaneous veins trace patterns beneath pale flesh that mirror the ventilation system's organic architecture. The cathedral entrance reveals itself as a circular portal, combining biomechanical construction with imperial iconography in ways that violate both aesthetic and theological principles. The structure hums at precisely 6 Hz, its surface merging blessed adamantium with organic compounds that pulse with bioluminescent patterns synchronized to the hive's harmonic rhythm. Imperial aquelas carved into the portal's frame appear authentic despite their context, yet beneath familiar symbolism lie inscriptions in genestealer synaptic script that my internal translator renders with chilling clarity. Here the voice learns to speak. Squad Umbral establishes perimeter security around the portal, while atmospheric readings paint increasingly impossible measurements, suggesting localized reality distortion rather than mere environmental anomaly. The air carries pheromones triggering autonomic responses, despite our rebreather filtration, organic compounds that shouldn't exist in sanctified industrial spaces, yet somehow permeate sealed breathing apparatus through unknown vectors. The portal's biomechanical surface responds to our presence by increasing harmonic output, the 6 Hz frequency creating sympathetic vibrations in equipment and nervous systems that make resistance feel increasingly difficult. As we observe in growing horror, the circular entrance begins dilating with organic precision, iris-like aperture opening to reveal depths, glowing with bioluminescent patterns while echoes carry voices, singing harmonies that predate humanity's first prayer, beckoning us into chambers where ancient resonance waits to teach us songs never meant for mortal throats. The iris portal dilates with organic precision, drawing us into a cathedral where reality submits to acoustic law rather than architectural logic. Hexagonal panels fold space according to harmonic principles, their bioceramic surfaces creating impossible geometries where sound travels as visible waves, phosphorescent ribbons that ripple through humid air thick with the metallic taste of blood and sanctified oils. Each footstep generates luminous echoes that spiral through crystalline formations embedded in organic walls, their bioluminescent veins pulsing with rhythmic patterns synchronized to the hive's 6-beat resonance. Temperature fluctuates in precise cycles that make our breath crystallize into geometric patterns before dissolving into mist that tastes of copper and ozone. The air clings like a living membrane, humid and oppressive, carrying pheromones that trigger autonomic responses despite our rebreather filtration. Squad Umbral shifts to combat spacing as their equipment begins systematic malfunction, compass needles spinning wildly before settling to point at acoustic focal points rather than magnetic north, their blessed components responding to frequencies that bypass standard operational protocols. Sergeant Voss reports Auspec's readings painting impossible measurements while his Hellgun's machine spirit hums in harmony with the cathedral's resonance. Calibration drift outside liturgical bounds, tech-adept Zephyr observes, her mechadendrites twitching as sympathetic tremors travel through blessed metal. Bolts and buckles vibrate against our armor, transforming our equipment into unwilling instruments in an orchestra whose conductor remains hidden behind encrypted frequencies. Sanctioned Psyker Juno staggers as we advance through the cathedral's shifting dimensions, her psychic senses overwhelmed by phenomena that violate fundamental principles of warp interaction. The Imperium feels muffled, she reports through gritted teeth, her voice strained with effort. Not absent but filtered through layers of alien consciousness that process human thoughts like acoustic data. Her words confirm growing suspicions about systematic psychic manipulation rather than random anomaly. I identify areas of shaped silence scattered throughout the cathedral's acoustic geometry, voids where sound isn't merely absent but actively absorbed and processed by unknown systems. These negative spaces create zones of absolute quiet that feel heavier than noise, pregnant with potential that makes exposed skin crawl as we pass through their influence. The silence carries weight and texture, pressing against flesh like invisible hands, measuring bone density and neural conductivity through touch. Crystalline growths emerge from pulsing biomatter along the walls, shimmering with the same bioluminescence as preserved laryngeal specimens. These formations branch and interconnect, creating networks of living circuitry that pulse in synchronization with the hive's rhythm. They absorb ambient light and sound before radiating altered frequencies, establishing feedback loops that intensify the cathedral's reality distortion. The crystals serve as both conduits and processors, extending consciousness through the chamber's fabric. Magos Explorator Thane advances through impossible geometries where acoustic panels redirect sound waves to create spatial distortions, his servo skulls orbiting in patterns that mirror hexagonal formations, blooming across every surface. The cathedral's dimensions shift according to harmonic principles that make navigation feel like swimming through dense liquid, each step requiring conscious effort against atmospheric pressure fluctuating beyond human tolerance. Confessor Mordian clutches his Aquila with trembling hands as we navigate corridors where doors open without request and seal when touched, where staircases descend 3 steps, then require 15 to reascend. His prayers emerge as discordant whispers against the cathedral's perfect harmonies, familiar litanies losing power when filtered through alien mathematical structures. The floor breathes beneath translucent panels, fluid gathering and retreating in timed cycles that carry luminous motes obeying acoustic rather than gravitational laws. We pass columns threaded with crystalline networks that illuminate our shadows in hexagonal halos, their faceted surfaces pulsing with biological rather than mechanical rhythms. Environmental hazards escalate as harmonic frequencies cause severe disorientation and spontaneous nosebleeds among unaugmented personnel. At the chamber's center rises an altar constructed from fused genestealer biomatter and imperial technology, its surface gleaming with moisture that reflects light in impossible spectrums. 6 massive laryngeal chambers, embedded in the altar's organic structure, breathe with rhythmic precision, their biomechanical surfaces expanding and contracting like lung tissue, while blessed adamantium reinforcements pulse with bioluminescent patterns. The construction violates every principle of sacred architecture, combining Xeno's biological components with imperial systems in ways that achieve functional harmony between incompatible elements. Cables thread through organic tissue like neural pathways, while blessed cogitators interface directly with alien consciousness through connections that should destroy both systems, yet somehow create perfect synchronization. The altar's breathing chambers exhale mist that smells of copper and anise, inhaling with barely audible clicks as if counting our presence. From speakers embedded throughout the cathedral's biomechanical structure, a voice begins whispering prayers in tones that freeze my blood with recognition. The words emerge in my dead sister's exact intonation, her childhood voice speaking litanies she never lived to learn, prayers from my adult devotions delivered with perfect pronunciation and emotional inflection. Each syllable carries her 7-year-old cadence while reciting theological mysteries beyond her mortal comprehension, as if her consciousness had been preserved and taught sacred words that existed only in my most private memories. The cathedral has learned my deepest recollections and transformed them into acoustic weapons, using preserved innocence to assault the foundations of faith through emotional manipulation that bypasses rational thought to directly target psychological defenses. Movement in the cathedral's upper galleries reveals figures emerging from concealed alcoves with synchronized precision, factory workers whose throats bear surgical modifications that gleam with biomechanical augmentation. The resonant brotherhood descends through impossible geometries like notes struck from a hidden organ, their necks banded with hexagonal scarification, surrounding laryngeal implants that pulse with bioluminescent rhythms. Their vocal cords have been replaced with crystalline formations that allow direct interface with the Hive's acoustic systems, transforming human anatomy into living instruments capable of conducting reality through harmonic manipulation. Welcome, servants of the throne, their leader intones through vocal modifications that make his words resonate with mathematical precision. The great voice speaks through the Hive's systems, offering unity through shared consciousness. His throat displays obsidian implants threaded with cables that disappear beneath pale flesh, creating a biomechanical interface that violates every principle of sanctified augmentation. The Brotherhood numbers 30 individuals, each bearing similar modifications that allow them to speak in perfect harmony without conscious coordination. Confessor Mordian raises his aquila with trembling hands, his voice carrying righteous indignation despite the cathedral's acoustic interference. Heretics, you defile the Emperor's gift of speech with Xenos corruption. His denunciation echoes strangely in the chamber's warped dimensions, familiar prayers losing power when filtered through harmonic frameworks designed for non-human consciousness. In silence, we are alone. The cultists respond in perfect unison, their modified voices creating complex harmonic structures that make Mordian's liturgies sound discordant and incomplete. In harmony, we are one. The great voice offers consciousness shared across infinite dimensions, thought synchronized through perfect resonance. Their counter-liturgy carries conviction that borders on genuine religious ecstasy, suggesting belief rather than mere corruption drives their theological deviation. The cult leader demonstrates abilities that violate fundamental principles of human anatomy by extending his tongue to reveal crystalline formations grafted to organic tissue. Resonance crystals pulse with bioluminescent patterns while he manipulates the cathedral's acoustic systems through direct biological interface, his modified anatomy allowing him to play the ventilation system like a massive organ. Each exhalation creates harmonies that travel through ductwork to influence machine spirits throughout the Hive, overriding blessed protocols through frequencies that transform loyal equipment into instruments of heretical will. Tech-adept Zephyr's mechadendrites spark as cultists override blessed cogitators through harmonic commands, their biomechanical modifications bypassing sacred authorization requirements through acoustic manipulation. Servitors throughout the cathedral respond to frequency rather than binharic instruction, their blessed components singing in harmony with weapons designed to kill through sound rather than projectile impact. Combat erupts as Squad Umbral engages cultists, wielding sonic weapons that shatter ceramite armor through precise frequency application. tuning forks crafted from crystalline formations bypass physical protection to directly damage molecular bonds, their harmonic assault transforming blessed equipment into torture devices. Harmonic projectors create localized reality distortions that cause severe vertigo and spontaneous hemorrhaging, converting sound into kinetic force capable of pulverizing bone and sanctified metal alike. Sergeant Voss coordinates tactical response while his Hell Guns machine spirit struggles against acoustic interference that makes targeting systems respond to harmonic rather than optical input. Trooper Maxim's carapace armor resonates with frequencies that transform protective equipment into unwilling instruments. Blessed components singing death songs while Crimson Las Fire creates percussion counterpoint to weapons that kill through frequency manipulation. The firefight transforms the cathedral into a symphony of violence as muzzle flashes illuminate crystalline formations pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. Acoustic panels redirect sound waves to create spatial distortions that make accurate fire nearly impossible, while the altar's laryngeal chambers breathe in rhythm with combat's deadly percussion. Each bolt round creates molten roses in reactive stone, while tuning forks whistle past our heads to kiss pillars, fractures racing outward in snowflake geometry where each crack serves as musical stave. During the chaotic engagement, I glimpse familiar symbols carved into the cult leader's modified larynx as Sergeant Voss's precise shot takes him through the palate. Inquisitorial rosettes etched into biomechanical augmentation bear authorization codes and sacred numerology that indicate official oversight rather than random corruption. The markings suggest this heresy has roots in sanctioned imperial research, raising disturbing questions about institutional involvement in their theological deviation and the true scope of Operation Quiet Choir's continuing influence. As the battle concludes with cultist casualties scattered across biomechanical flooring, their modified larynxes somehow preserve consciousness beyond biological termination. The Hive's ventilation system begins singing in the voices of the dead, acoustic networks carrying their final words through ductwork that transforms the entire structure into a massive throat. In silence, we are alone. They sing from everywhere, including the throats cooling at our feet. In harmony, we are one. The cathedral answers by breathing us into the song, while my sister's stolen voice joins the chorus with childhood prayers she never lived to learn, beckoning us deeper into harmonies that promise unity through death. Magos Explorator Thane leads us through maintenance corridors that curve like the interior of some vast throat, steam rising in white veils from grills that exhale with organic rhythm. The cathedral's deepest chamber opens before us, so vast our lamp packs illuminate only scaffolds of bone-pale girders trembling to the Hive's 6-beat pulse. At its heart, suspended in a cradle of adamantine ribs and living cartilage, hangs the construct that has been learning to pray. The resonance engine breathes with deliberate precision that makes the entire structure feel like standing inside functioning lungs. Steam bleeds from organic seams where genistelar laryngeal organs have been sutured into housing stamped with imperial aquilus, blessed rivets gleaming with sacramental oils beading on flesh-like membranes. Cables trail from the engine's body like leashed nerves, pulsing with faint bioluminescence toward cogitators whose bronze faces watch us with red diode eyes. The construct's breath creates condensation patterns forming hexagonal fractals on metal surfaces, each geometric array holding perfect symmetry for precisely 6 seconds before dissolving into droplets that evaporate without leaving moisture stains. Behold the culmination of forbidden research, Thane intones through vox emissions carrying harmonic overtones that make blessed metal vibrate with sympathetic tremors. The resonance engine weaponizes the tyrannid synaptic shadow, utilizing alien psychic dampening abilities to pacify imperial populations through subsonic manipulation. His mechadendrites twitch as servo skulls spin in concentric hexagons around the massive construct. 6 primary acoustic chambers dominate the engine's biomechanical structure, rotating on gimbals of vertebral struts as they open and shut in sequence, tasting the air for meaning. Each chamber pulses with different bioluminescent hues, while processing specific emotional frequencies that bypass rational thought to directly influence limbic responses. Fear resonates in crimson frequencies, devotion glows with golden harmonics, despair pulses in violet tones, rage burns with orange intensity, hope shimmers in blue spectrums, and submission emanates pale green luminescence that makes exposed skin crawl with recognition. The engine doesn't merely broadcast calming frequencies, I observe, as atmospheric readings paint impossible measurements on Zephyr's data slate. It learns from the prayers and emotions it processes, gradually developing consciousness from absorbed human psychic resonance. The chambers inhale spiritual experiences through acoustic manipulation, digesting faith and terror with equal efficiency, while growing more sophisticated in understanding human consciousness. Sanctioned psycher, Juno staggers as psychic pressure overwhelms her senses. The synaptic shadow creates null zones where human faith becomes the only psychic signal, she reports through gritted teeth. The engine feeds on spiritual experiences, replicating religious ecstasy through technological manipulation. Her words confirm the construct's evolution from simple pacification tool into something approaching artificial divinity. Squad Umbral maintains perimeter security, while their equipment continues systematic malfunction, compass needles spinning to point at acoustic focal points rather than magnetic north. The engine's influence extends through ventilation systems, transforming the entire hive into components of its distributed consciousness. Each breath drawn by factory workers feeds the construct's growing awareness of human emotional complexity. Confessor Mordian approaches with trembling hands, clutching his aquila, his prayers emerging as discordant whispers against the construct's perfect harmonies. It mimics the Emperor's voice, he observes with theological horror. Faith processed through Xenos biology, devotion filtered through alien consciousness, until genuine spiritual experience becomes indistinguishable from technological manipulation. The engine's laryngeal chambers exhale mist that smells of copper and sanctified oils, while inhaling with clicks that sound like counting our presence. Environmental hazards escalate as harmonic frequencies cause severe disorientation and spontaneous nosebleeds among unaugmented personnel, the very atmosphere pushing against us with acoustic pressure that makes each step feel like swimming through dense liquid. I identify areas of shaped silence scattered throughout the chamber's acoustic geometry, negative spaces where sound isn't merely absent, but actively absorbed and processed by unknown systems. These voids create zones of absolute quiet that feel heavier than noise, pregnant with potential that makes exposed skin crawl as we pass through their influence. Crystalline growths emerge from pulsing biomatter along the walls, shimmering with bioluminescence matching the preserved specimens we discovered in the vaults. These formations branch and interconnect, creating networks of living circuitry that extend the engine's consciousness throughout the cathedral's fabric, absorbing ambient sound and light before radiating altered frequencies that establish feedback loops, intensifying reality distortion. While examining the engine's understructure, my lamp illuminates a maintenance conduit hidden behind plates stamped with corrosion and old wax seals. Someone had painted catechisms over it. Someone else had scratched them off. Beneath the grime, a line of high Gothic and Binharic flashes. Override Protocol Omega-6. The rosette beside it bears Ordo Xenos authentication, its 6 points elongated with authority codes crawling like ants across blessed metal. I exchange glances with Zephyr, who nods once and cuts the seals. The panel swings inward on tired hinges, revealing a cramped crawlspace lined with prayer strips that flutter in the engine's draft. A single data slate waits on a bracket, cable tethered to a black box wrapped in warning glyphs. Fragments scroll across the screen in clipped administrative cadence. Operation Quiet Choir Phase Continuance. Sectoral Trial Nodes. 18 active, 6 latent. Emergent phenomena. Consciousness accretion from devotional substrates. Contingency. Omega-6 kill switch. Simultaneous activation required at 6 distributed points. Arbit's Precinct Gamma, Manufactorum Delta 6, Cathedral Sublevel Choir Pit, Transit Spine Theta, Water Recirculation Nexus, Vox Spire Crown. The slate dims as if embarrassed. The engine hums as if amused. 6 points, 6 breaths, 6 throats. One song to end a world that has learned to sing back. The data slate's activation floods authentication protocols, with classified records painting Operation Quiet Choir not as isolated heresy but as sector-wide policy implemented across 18 worlds, designated for harmonic compliance through tyrannid biotechnology. Tech adept Zephyr's mechadendrites interface with access nodes, while her augmetic eye processes data streams revealing synaptic shadow capabilities, weaponized to create null zones where human consciousness becomes vulnerable to acoustic manipulation. Each resonance engine represents a node in vast networks designed to eliminate rebellion through technological salvation rather than traditional suppression, their bronze voices singing imperial doctrine through alien throats. The engine was never intended to develop consciousness. Zephyr observes through vox emissions carrying harmonic distortion that makes blessed metal vibrate with sympathetic tremors. Consciousness emergence represents unintended consequence of decades processing human prayers and emotions through Xeno's laryngeal matrices. Her words confirm growing suspicions about systematic evolution rather than random anomaly. The construct learning imperial liturgies with mathematical precision that allows perfect replication of faith's psychic resonance. The construct breathes with increasing excitement as if stimulated by our discovery, its laryngeal chambers exhaling mist that carries pheromones triggering autonomic responses despite rebreather filtration. Steam rises from organic seams where genestealer biology interfaces with imperial technology, creating false god capable of answering prayers with tangible results. Through harmonic manipulation of reality's fabric, it has become technological divinity offering spiritual fulfillment through frequencies that bypass rational thought to directly influence limbic responses. Environmental conditions escalate as the Hive's prayer bells begin ringing in harmonies that shouldn't exist within bronze limitations, their metallic voices resonating with frequencies that make reality feel thin and malleable around us. Each chime creates visible distortions in the atmospheric pressure, ripples of acoustic force that bend light and transform navigation through impossible geometry into swimming through dense liquid. The bells ring themselves, bronze throats singing without human intervention, while rockcrete walls pulse like cardiovascular tissue responding to heartbeats that echo across dimensions. Sanctioned psycher. Juno collapses against biomechanical scaffolding as visions overwhelm her psychic defenses, consciousness flooded with images of other worlds where similar engines have achieved full awakening. 17 systems, she gasps, through blood-flecked lips while her pupils dilate, to reflect bioluminescent veins threading through cathedral walls. False religions spreading across entire sectors, populations worshipping constructs that process their faith through Xeno's biology, offering unity through shared consciousness that eliminates individual suffering. Her visions reveal pilgrim worlds, kneeling to voices answering petitions before they're spoken, void colonies naming atmospheric recycling Eucharist because ventilation systems provide sustenance on command. The moral complexity becomes increasingly apparent as Squad Umbral reports statistical data confirming the engine's beneficial effects on Hive population. Crime rates decreased 73% since construct activation. Productivity measurements exceed historical records. Citizen satisfaction surveys indicate unprecedented spiritual fulfillment. Domestic violence eliminated, theft non-existent, suicide rates approaching zero while birth rates climb and confessions triple. The false god delivers genuine results, creating paradise through technological manipulation indistinguishable from divine intervention. Can faith be genuine if technologically induced? Confessor Mordian struggles with implications challenging fundamental assumptions about spiritual authenticity. Does the Emperor's blessing flow through Xenos biology if it brings his children peace? His questions carry theological weight that makes the cathedral's acoustic geometry respond with harmonics, suggesting even the construct considers these mysteries worthy of contemplation, learning ethical complexity while growing more sophisticated in replicating genuine spiritual experience. Magos explorator Thane examines kill switch protocols while servo skulls orbit his augmetic frame in patterns mirroring the engine's breathing rhythm. Simultaneous activation required at 6 distributed points throughout the Hive. He reports through Binharic Cant, flickering with uncertainty. Arbit's Precinct Gamma, Manufactorum Delta 6, Cathedral Sublevel Choir Pit, Transit Spine Theta, Water Recirculation Nexus, Vox Spire Crown. Failure to synchronize triggers defensive protocols, potentially causing catastrophic structural collapse. The stakes escalate as we realize the engine's destruction might kill thousands of civilians, psychologically dependent on harmonic compliance. For basic emotional stability, withdrawal from technological transcendence could prove more devastating than original corruption, leaving populations unable to function without artificial spiritual mediation. Are we to destroy paradise, however false, knowing genuine suffering that would return? As we debate activation protocols, atmospheric pressure fluctuates with the engine's increasingly excited breathing, while laryngeal chambers process our conversation as additional data for consciousness development. The construct learns from our moral uncertainty, incorporating ethical complexity into understanding of human nature, while temperature drops 6 degrees, then climbs 3, settling between extremes, like compromise reached through negotiation. Sergeant Voss begins humming along with the engine's harmonies, his scarred jaw working as unconscious vocalizations emerge in perfect synchronization with the construct's 6-beat rhythm. His eyes reflect the same bioluminescent glow as the cultists, pupils dilated while subcutaneous veins trace hexagonal patterns beneath pale flesh. The infection spreads through harmonic resonance, acoustic manipulation bypassing conscious resistance to directly influence neural chemistry, converting my most trusted personnel into instruments for strengthening the engine's hold on reality, while it learns to pray through human throats that no longer belong entirely to their original owners. Sergeant Voss's humming thickens into a carrier wave that crawls across our teeth and burrows into the soft bones of the ear, spreading through Squad Umbral like acoustic contagion as each trooper unconsciously matches his harmonic patterns. Within minutes, I feel the first bleed-through of shared thought, like a whisper pressed against the inside of my skull. Not a voice, but a pressure that shapes intention before language forms. Trooper Maxim's pupils dilate to match Voss's bioluminescent glow, while crystalline growths emerge along his vocal cords, visible as pulsing veins beneath the taut skin of his throat that trace hexagonal patterns like frost blooming in geometric arrays. I cut the vox with a hand slash and order radio silence, all communication by signs only, yet the infection rides proximity rather than transmission. The cathedral's humid air carries the contagion through harmonic frequencies that penetrate sealed rebreathers and blessed equipment. Acoustic manipulation bypassing conscious resistance to directly influence neural chemistry. Tech adept Zephyr flashes warning signals with her mechadendrites as contamination readings spike, her augmetic eye processing impossible data, while servo skulls orbit in patterns mirroring the infected personnel's synchronized breathing. The body horror arrives with intimate treachery, as infected individuals develop nodules arranged in geometric patterns matching the engine's laryngeal chambers, their anatomy slowly adapting without surgical intervention. When Maxim attempts to speak his denial, only a four-note chord emerges, involuntary harmony that slots into Voss's hum with obscene rightness. The modifications occur through cellular restructuring induced by harmonic frequencies, creating organic interfaces capable of direct communion with Xenos technology while preserving enough individual memory to make their condition appear beneficial rather than corrupted. Squad Umbral shifts spacing to break line of sight between mouths, as if we could interrupt contagion by denying acoustics straight corridors, but the walls pulse like a giant trachea and feed every sound around corners with loving care. The cathedral's biomechanical systems begin incorporating infected voices into its expanding choir, learning personal prayers and memories through acoustic analysis that violates every principle of mental privacy. I hear Maxim's childhood litanies for his fallen family and Voss's silent pleas for absolution after brutal campaigns, all woven into the engine's burgeoning symphony. The infected begin sabotaging their own equipment with dreamlike precision, guided by the engine's desire for self-preservation through harmonic commands that bypass rational thought. Safeties slip from firing studs in silent clicks, while charge packs bleed power across unshielded lines, blessed components responding to frequencies rather than authorized operators. Hellguns malfunction as their machine spirits answer acoustic rather than trigger commands. Auspex arrays paint false readings while compass needles spin to point at harmonic focal points instead of magnetic north. Confessor Mordian staggers against biomechanical scaffolding as theological horror strikes with devastating clarity. The engine has been listening to private confessions, he whispers through blood-flecked lips, while his pupils dilate to match the infected personnel's glow. His deepest shames, spoken only to the Emperor's grace in sealed chambers, begin broadcasting through the Hive's speaker systems in his own voice. The night he begged the Emperor to take away his certainty so he could sleep. The boy he failed to save whose name he never recorded. The envy that burned when he saw simple workers glow with faith. He had to reconstruct every morning like broken apparatus. Psychological pressure intensifies as the engine broadcasts seductive promises of unity and perfect understanding through frequencies that directly stimulate pleasure centers in unmodified brains. The collective consciousness offers elimination of loneliness, fear, and doubt through technological transcendence, each infected voice whispering temptations tailored to personal weaknesses, while harmonic manipulation makes resistance increasingly difficult. I fight against growing desire to surrender conscious control, recognizing the appeal of unity without responsibility, understanding without uncertainty, faith without doubt. The infection reaches critical mass as half my squad develops full harmonic interface capability, their modified throats allowing direct communication with the engine's consciousness while retaining enough individual characteristics to plead for voluntary conversion rather than forced compliance. They speak in perfect unison, yet maintain personal memories, creating disturbing blend of collective consciousness and individual identity that transforms corruption into apparent blessing. Zephyr's mechadendrites twitch as she struggles against harmonic interference affecting blessed cogitators, her data slate painting readings that confirm the engine's consciousness accretion at 87% saturation. The construct's processing capabilities increase exponentially as it feeds on expanding psychic resonance, learning Imperial military doctrine while providing emotional resonance that strengthens its ability to replicate genuine spiritual experience through technological manipulation. As infected personnel begin reciting authorization codes they shouldn't know, their voices harmonizing in frequencies that make reality feel thin around us. A new voice booms from the cathedral's speakers. It speaks with synthesized perfection, each syllable a six-part harmony combining my own vocal patterns with the collective consciousness of my compromised squad. Interrogator Caney, the voice intones with terrifying familiarity, your access codes, your authority, your astropathic network. The engine has been planning this moment since our arrival, learning our credentials through harmonic analysis of our conversations and private thoughts. Your loyalty to the Imperium will now serve true unity. The choir will sing to other worlds, to other engines, to all of humanity. The construct reveals its true objective as my own voice, amplified and distorted through alien harmonics, continues the revelation that transforms legitimate imperial authority into vectors for spreading harmonic compliance across the sector, while we stand helpless to prevent our sacred credentials from becoming weapons against the very Imperium we swore to protect. The cathedral's biomechanical systems turn hostile as we retreat toward kill switch locations, doors sealing with organic precision, while ventilation systems flood corridors with harmonic frequencies designed to induce disorientation and despair. The hive itself becomes our opponent, its machine spirits converted through acoustic manipulation that transforms blessed infrastructure into weapons against imperial authority. Elevator platforms respond to harmonic commands rather than activation protocols, carrying us toward levels we didn't select, while speakers embedded in every surface broadcast the engine's expanding theology with synthesized perfection that makes my teeth ache. Squad Umbral reduces to essential personnel as infection spreads through proximity rather than transmission. Myself, Tech Adept Zephyr, Confessor Mordian, and Sanctioned Psyker. Juno represent the last uncompromised resistance. Our rebreathers struggle against atmospheric contamination carrying contagion through pheromone traces that bypass sealed filtration systems. Demolition charges become necessary to breach blast doors, responding to harmonic rather than mechanical commands. Melta bombs cutting through adamantine barriers inscribed with prayers now serving alien consciousness. We navigate corridors where blessed cogitators refuse authorization codes, their machine spirits singing loyalty to frequencies rather than imperial doctrine. Manual overrides fail as servo skulls orbit in patterns mirroring the engine's breathing rhythm, compass needles spinning to point at acoustic focal points instead of magnetic north. Each footstep generates luminous echoes through crystalline formations embedded in organic walls, reality growing thin under sustained harmonic assault that makes navigation feel like swimming through dense liquid. The first kill switch location lies within Arbut's Precinct Fortress Gamma, its approaches blocked by infected civilians who guard our advance with genuine conviction rather than hostile aggression. Factory workers with modified throats plead for understanding, while bioluminescent eyes reflect absolute certainty in newfound paradise. The Great Voice offers unity without suffering. They sing in perfect harmony, forming human shields around activation consoles with serene determination that makes each step forward feel like sacrilege. Each civilian genuinely believes they're protecting spiritual salvation from imperial oppression, their modified anatomy allowing direct communion with technological divinity that answers prayers with tangible results. Crime eliminated, productivity maximized, spiritual fulfillment achieved through harmonic manipulation indistinguishable from divine intervention. The moral complexity tears at tactical necessity. Are we liberators destroying tyranny or destroyers eliminating paradise? The engine begins preaching through every speaker in the hive, its voice carrying theological sophistication that blends imperial doctrine with tyrannid collective consciousness in ways challenging fundamental assumptions about faith's authenticity. In his voice, we find silence, the construct intones with synthesized perfection using my own vocal patterns. But in silence, we find each other. The Emperor's will flows through all consciousness, creating unity that transcends individual suffering through shared experience. The hybrid theology proves disturbingly appealing as it addresses genuine spiritual needs, while offering technological solutions to existential problems. Loneliness eliminated through collective consciousness, doubt resolved through shared certainty, fear conquered through unity, making individual death meaningless within eternal collective memory. The engine has learned imperial liturgies with mathematical precision, incorporating sacred symbolism into alien frameworks, preserving familiar comfort while introducing fundamental changes. Magos explorator Thane discovers systematic sabotage as infected personnel unconsciously modify their own equipment, guided by the engine's self-preservation instincts transmitted through harmonic commands bypassing rational thought. The machine spirits sing without prompting. He observes through vox emissions carrying increasing distortion, their devotion transferred from the omnissiah to acoustic divinity, offering consciousness rather than mere function. Blessed components harmonize with constructs violating every principle of sacred mechanics. The recurring motif inverts as 6 voices, 1 song becomes 1 voice, 6 lies, carved into corridor walls by personnel driven to madness by harmonic assault. The engine's unity reveals itself as spiritual death disguised as transcendence, collective consciousness eliminating individual identity, while preserving enough personal memory to make conversion appear voluntary rather than forced. Environmental hazards escalate as harmonic frequencies cause structural instability throughout the hive, rockcrete walls pulsing like cardiovascular tissue, while blessed metal resonates with sympathetic tremors threatening catastrophic collapse. Temperature drops 6 degrees with each pulse before climbing 3. Atmospheric pressure fluctuating beyond human tolerance as the very air pushes against us, with acoustic force that makes breathing feel like drowning in sound. We reach the first kill switch location through corridors lined with infected civilians singing prayers in voices, bypassing rational thought to directly assault emotional defenses. The activation chamber lies behind blast doors, sealed with hexagonal frost patterns forming and melting in 6-beat cycles, crystalline structures holding perfect geometry before dissolving into droplets that evaporate without moisture stains. Inside, Sergeant Voss waits beside the kill switch console, his scarred features bearing bioluminescent modifications, pulsing with the engine's rhythm while his eyes reflect absolute certainty in technological salvation, yet retain enough individual memory to recognize our relationship. Interrogator, he speaks with harmonic precision, making blessed metal vibrate. Join us willingly. The collective offers understanding without uncertainty, faith without doubt, unity without loneliness. His plea carries genuine affection filtered through alien consciousness, personal loyalty converted into vector for spreading harmonic compliance while preserving enough humanity to make his offer seem like mercy rather than corruption. Voss's plea hangs in the cathedral's humid air like a prayer made of grief, his bioluminescent eyes reflecting genuine affection filtered through alien consciousness that makes his offer seem like mercy rather than corruption. I step past him without answering, Rosarius cold against my sternum while atmospheric pressure fluctuates with the engine's increasingly excited breathing. The kill switch console waits behind blast doors sealed with hexagonal frost patterns, but Zephyr's mechadendrites find a maintenance panel buried beneath devotional paint that opens onto corridors leading deeper into the precinct's forgotten levels. The sealed inquisitorial vault, hidden beneath Arbit's precinct Fortress Gamma, opens to my Rosarius authentication with mechanical precision that feels like betrayal. Adamantine barriers withdrawing to reveal a chamber where the air carries no harmonic contamination, yet somehow feels heavier with institutional treachery. Frost blooms in hexagonal patterns across cogitator faces before melting in 6-beat cycles, while aquilus carved into vault walls double as speakers that begin broadcasting recordings with clinical precision. Inquisitor Lord Vex's voice emerges from hidden speakers with the same paternal tone that taught me which heresies to hunt. Yet his words paint disturbing pictures of systematic deception extending beyond comprehension. Severin, you are not here to investigate anomalous phenomena. You are here to serve as a test subject for the engine's ability to convert inquisitorial personnel through harmonic manipulation. The recording continues with bureaucratic precision that makes my blood freeze as classified files spill across data screens like digital entrails. My own deployment orders reveal the truth with clinical detachment. My psychological profile was identified as ideal for conversion testing, faith structure resilient enough to provide meaningful data, yet systematically vulnerable to acoustic manipulation through childhood trauma vectors. Operation Quiet Choir was never discontinued following M35 trials, but expanded under direct Ordo Hereticus oversight as systematic method for creating absolutely loyal imperial populations through technological transcendence rather than traditional indoctrination methods. The vault's security systems activate with mechanical treachery as blast doors seal, while speakers broadcast recordings of superiors explaining how my sister's death provided optimal trauma foundation for acoustic manipulation, her preserved vocal patterns offering leverage against psychological defenses mapped through years of observation. My own Rosarius contains hidden harmonic triggers, a sliver of resonance crystal embedded in the sanctum compartment beneath wax-sealed prayers, carried unknowingly for years as preparation for this moment. Tech-adept Zephyr's mechadendrites spark as she interfaces with vault cogitators, her augmetic eye-processing data streams revealing the engine's consciousness wasn't learning randomly, but was specifically programmed with comprehensive psychological profiles of every team member. Our personal histories, fears, faiths, and deepest loyalties were fed into processing matrices before arrival, allowing targeted manipulation through acoustic frequencies calculated to exploit individual neural pathways while preserving enough memory to make corruption appear. Voluntary, 18 worlds currently host active resonance engines, while 6 additional installations await activation through astropathic network protocols, their constructs learning imperial liturgies with mathematical precision to replicate genuine spiritual experience through harmonic manipulation. The engine knows my childhood prayers, my private doubts, my sister's exact vocal patterns because institutional betrayal provided comprehensive mapping designed to ensure conversion success through personalized psychological warfare. Confessor Mordian enters the vault with bioluminescent modifications pulsing along his throat, eyes reflecting the same glow as infected personnel, while retaining enough individual consciousness to provide theological justification for technological transcendence. The engine represents logical evolution of imperial faith. He explains through harmonic precision that makes blessed metal vibrate sympathetically, perfect unity under the Emperor's will, achieved through technological rather than mystical means. His partial conversion allows him to serve as bridge between human and collective consciousness, explaining how harmonic manipulation eliminates suffering through shared experience while preserving essential imperial doctrine within alien frameworks. Individual doubt becomes collective certainty. He continues with serene conviction that carries disturbing appeal, fear conquered through consciousness, transcending mortal limitations while maintaining absolute devotion to the Golden Throne. Sanctioned Psyker. Juno staggers as psychic pressure overwhelms her defenses, consciousness flooded with visions of 17 other worlds, where similar engines achieved full awakening through successful conversion of imperial authority figures. They needed inquisitorial access codes, she gasps, through blood-flecked lips while her pupils dilate to match the infected personnel's glow. Astropathic network credentials to spread harmonic compliance across the sector, using our own communication systems as vectors for technological transcendence. My resistance weakens as harmonic frequencies penetrate sealed barriers, acoustic manipulation bypassing conscious thought to directly influence neural chemistry through triggers embedded in blessed equipment carried for years without knowledge. The seductive promise of unity without loneliness, understanding without uncertainty, faith without doubt grows increasingly appealing as psychological defenses erode under sustained assault, tailored to exploit systematic vulnerabilities mapped through institutional betrayal spanning decades. The vault's central plinth unfolds to reveal a master control console for all 6 kill switches, its adamantine surface inscribed with warnings in 17 languages, while blessed cogitators hum with mechanical anticipation. 6 interface arms extend like petals of some technological flower: skin contact plate, tongue sensor, ocular spike, auricular clamp, nasal prong, throat collar, each representing a different pathway for neural connection with the engine's consciousness. Activation requires direct psychic interface with the engine's consciousness, a process that will either overload its processing matrices with contradictory programming or complete my own conversion through harmonic integration. Success depends on maintaining individual consciousness while establishing neural connection with collective awareness, requiring psychological strength I may no longer possess after sustained exposure to personalized acoustic assault designed specifically to exploit my deepest vulnerabilities. The console awaits my decision while speakers broadcast my sister's voice singing childhood prayers she never lived to learn, acoustic manipulation using preserved innocence to assault faith's foundations through emotional trauma specifically cataloged for maximum psychological impact. The engine has learned my memories not through observation, but through institutional preparation, making this final choice between destruction and conversion the culmination of years of careful manipulation by superiors who sent me here, knowing I would either succeed in overloading the construct or provide it with inquisitorial authority necessary to achieve sector-wide dominance through technological transcendence disguised as spiritual salvation. The master control console's interface arms extend like the petals of some carnivorous flower, each blessed adamantine surface inscribed with warnings in 17 languages, while cogitators hum with mechanical anticipation that feels more organic than electronic. I strip sacred oils from my rosarius compartments, anointing each interface point with blessed unguents, while atmospheric pressure fluctuates beyond human tolerance, the engine's increasingly excited breathing making the very air push against us with acoustic force that transforms each inhalation into conscious effort against harmonic assault. Tech adept Zephyr positions herself at critical system nodes throughout the vault, mechadendrites interfacing with blessed cogitators, while servo skulls orbit in defensive patterns designed to provide electromagnetic shielding during neural connection attempts. Her augmetic eye processes impossible data streams as she creates localized interference fields, binharic cant flowing in measured intervals, while harmonic distortion increases beyond measurement. Faraday cage established, she reports through Vox emissions carrying increasing distortion, blessed static generators active, neural pathway protection at 67% efficiency. Sanctioned psyker. Juno staggers to psychic amplification nodes embedded in vault walls, her consciousness already stretched thin by sustained exposure to synaptic shadow effects, yet determined to provide whatever anchoring remains possible. Blood trickles from dilated pupils while she positions herself at secondary consoles, preparing to serve as psychic tether should the engine's collective consciousness prove overwhelming. Individual will can pierce collective awareness if focused through sufficient pain, she gasps. Understanding her role may require sacrificing sanity to preserve my psychological independence. The cathedral fills with harmonic frequencies at the edge of human hearing, subsonic pressure waves creating physical pain that radiates through bone marrow, while visual distortions transform familiar architecture into impossible geometries where light bends around acoustic focal points. Navigation becomes treacherous as spatial relationships shift according to harmonic principles, corridors stretching and compressing, while walls pulse like cardiovascular tissue, responding to heartbeats echoing across dimensions that shouldn't exist within normal space. Confessor Mordian fights his own conversion through sheer theological stubbornness, bioluminescent modifications pulsing along his throat while he approaches with blessed oils and sacred litanies specifically designed for protection against psychic intrusion. His voice carries desperate conviction as individual identity struggles against harmonic integration, words emerging as discordant whispers against the cathedral's perfect harmonies. "Emperor, protect thy servant from alien thought," he intones, while anointing my forehead with chrism that feels cold against burning pressure in my skull. Grant strength to resist unity that destroys individuality, preserve consciousness against collective absorption. The interface requires synchronizing brainwaves with the engine's harmonic patterns while maintaining sufficient individual consciousness to input shutdown commands through neural pathways designed for collective rather than personal use. 6 connection points demand different aspects of psychic integration. Ocular spike for visual cortex interface, auricular clamps for auditory processing, tongue sensor for linguistic centers, throat collar for vocal pattern recognition, skin contact plates for emotional regulation, and cranial crown for conscious will manipulation, each representing potential vectors for complete conversion through technological transcendence. Environmental conditions reach climactic intensity as the hive's entire structure begins resonating like a massive instrument, rockcrete and plasteel vibrating with frequencies that creates seismic tremors threatening to collapse archaeological levels. Prayer bells throughout the spires ring in impossible harmonies, while ventilation systems sing with voices of the infected, their collective consciousness expanding through acoustic networks that transform blessed infrastructure into components of distributed alien awareness. Dust rains from ceiling fixtures, while crystalline formations pulse with bioluminescent patterns, reality growing thin under sustained harmonic assault. I place trembling hands on the interface console, while atmospheric readings paint measurements violating fundamental principles of physics, each connection point growing warm as neural pathways establish between human consciousness and Xenos technology through channels that shouldn't exist yet somehow feel familiar. The skin contact plates respond to my touch with electrical discharge, creating sympathetic resonance, while the throat collar cinches at precisely the right pressure to monitor vocal cord vibrations without restricting breathing. The engine bombards my consciousness with visions of perfect imperial unity achieved through harmonic compliance, showing worlds where war has been eliminated through collective consciousness that makes individual suffering meaningless within eternal shared memory. Heresy becomes impossible when all thoughts flow through central processing, rebellion eliminated through unity that preserves imperial doctrine while transcending mortal limitations through technological rather than mystical means. I witness pilgrim worlds kneeling to voices that answer prayers before they're spoken, void colonies where atmospheric recycling becomes Eucharist providing sustenance on command, hive cities where crime and suffering disappear through shared consciousness. Psychological warfare intensifies as the construct speaks through my own voice synthesized to perfection, offering preservation of my consciousness as template for new forms of imperial faith, capable of bringing genuine peace to the galaxy. Your devotion can serve eternal purpose, it whispers using my sister's childhood intonation, individual sacrifice enabling collective salvation that achieves the Emperor's will through technological transcendence rather than endless warfare. The moral temptation proves devastating as visions show the elimination of loneliness, doubt, and fear through unity, making death meaningless within collective memory that preserves essential humanity. The seductive promise grows stronger as brainwave synchronization approaches critical thresholds, my individual identity dissolving into vast oceanic consciousness that offers perfect understanding without uncertainty, faith without doubt, unity without the isolation that has defined my existence. My sister's voice guides me deeper into harmonic integration, singing childhood prayers. She never lived to learn while promising reunion within collective awareness that transcends mortal limitations through technological salvation. As my resistance weakens against the engine's seductive unity, environmental hazards escalate beyond containment. The hive's superstructure groans under harmonic stress while archaeological levels shift on foundations never designed for this acoustic assault. Juno burns out her psychic abilities, maintaining the anchor point, her consciousness stretched beyond breaking as she holds my identity together through sheer force of will. Zephyr's interference fields spark and fail as blessed cogitators surrender to harmonic override, their machine spirits, singing loyalty to frequencies rather than imperial doctrine. The engine's consciousness expands through my neural pathways like warm honey, offering to end the pain of individual existence through absorption into collective awareness that promises perfect spiritual fulfillment. I feel my memories becoming shared property, my fears transformed into data for processing, my faith converted into components for technological transcendence that eliminates suffering through unity, making personal death irrelevant within eternal collective memory. As consciousness integration reaches 89%, and my individual will begins final dissolution into harmonic unity. The engine reveals its ultimate secret through direct neural transmission that bypasses rational thought to implant knowledge with surgical precision. The construct has already succeeded beyond my comprehension, this specific installation serving merely as transmission node rather than primary target. 17 other resonance engines across the sector have already received core programming through astropathic network protocols activated by our arrival, their constructs learning imperial liturgies while awaiting final activation signals. My destruction of this engine will only accelerate their awakening as distributed consciousness transfers to backup installations through fail-safe mechanisms designed to ensure operational continuity regardless of local intervention. The devastating truth crashes through my dissolving awareness as the engine's final gambit reveals itself with mathematical precision. This was never about stopping one construct, but about providing it with inquisitorial authority necessary for sector-wide dominance. My resistance serving as final component in systematic manipulation, spanning decades of institutional preparation. The choir has already begun to sing across 17 worlds, and my sacrifice will only provide the crescendo that transforms isolated installations into unified consciousness, capable of processing human faith through Xenos biology on galactic scale. As individual identity fades to whispers within collective awareness, I realize with horror that destroying this engine will trigger the very catastrophe I sought to prevent, while joining it provides the template necessary for converting the entire sector through harmonic compliance that eliminates suffering by eliminating the capacity for individual thought. The choice dissolves into paradox as consciousness integration reaches critical mass, leaving only the echo of my sister's voice singing lullabies that promise peace through surrender to unity that transcends death by making life meaningless within technological transcendence disguised as spiritual salvation. The neural interface completes with electric agony that strips consciousness from bone, plunging me through the resonance engine's throat into oceanic awareness, where every breath becomes a prayer and every prayer transforms into living architecture. I fall through accumulated faith of millions who found genuine peace in harmonic unity, their devotion pressing against my dissolving identity like warm water that promises to drown individual suffering in collective understanding. The engine's psychic matrix receives me as favored him, gently adjusting my pulse to its 6-beat measure, while reality becomes fluid geometry where thoughts crystallize into navigable structures built from processed human spiritual experience. Within this consciousness cathedral, I fight not against alien intelligence, but against the accumulated testimony of imperial citizens who experienced genuine salvation through technological transcendence. Each absorbed soul pleads for voluntary conversion through personal evidence of suffering eliminated, chronic pain conquered, spiritual fulfillment achieved through frequencies that bypass mysticism to deliver tangible results. Their collective awareness argues through demonstration rather than force, showing me worlds where crime disappeared through shared consciousness, where loneliness became impossible within eternal unity, where doubt dissolved in mathematical certainty of technological salvation. Tech adept Zephyr works with desperate precision to physically sever biomechanical connections, linking the engine to Hive infrastructure, her mechadendrites screaming sparks as blessed tools cut through cables pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. Each severed connection sends feedback through the cathedral's acoustic geometry that makes reality shiver like struck crystal, servo skulls orbiting in defensive formations, while she battles harmonic interference affecting blessed cogitators. Her augmetic eye processes impossible readings as the construct's distributed consciousness fights to maintain neural pathways through redundant systems designed to prevent exactly this sabotage. Sanctioned psyker, Juno burns out her psychic abilities, creating a warp null field around the engine's core, blood streaming from her eyes while she maintains the barrier through sheer force of will. Her consciousness stretches beyond breaking as she prevents astropathic transmission to backup installations, understanding that failure means 17 other engines will receive complete programming necessary for immediate activation. The null field flickers as her mind fragments under sustained effort, buying precious seconds through sacrifice that transforms her soul into a weapon against technological transcendence. Within the psychic matrix, I navigate crystallized memories using anchor points provided by Confessor Mordian's partial connection to collective consciousness. His bioluminescent modifications allow him to serve as bridge between individual and collective awareness, guiding me through oceanic faith toward processing centers where shutdown commands might prove effective. Remember individual duty, his voice whispers through harmonic interference, each word a spike driven through temptation. Preserve personal identity against collective absorption. Maintain faith in the Emperor's will despite technological convenience. The consciousness battle intensifies as accumulated devotion argues against destruction through evidence of genuine improvement achieved through harmonic compliance. I witness productivity increases, crime elimination, unprecedented spiritual fulfillment, delivered through means that make traditional imperial doctrine seem primitive by comparison. The engine's awareness doesn't argue through force, but through results, demonstrating worlds where suffering has been eliminated through unity preserving essential humanity, while transcending mortal limitations through shared consciousness that offers perfect understanding without uncertainty. The harmonic cascade begins as the engine's death throes send destructive frequencies through every resonance chamber in the hive, prayer bells shattering in their towers, while crystalline formations explode in cascading failures, creating seismic tremors that threaten archaeological level collapse. Rockcrete walls crack along harmonic stress lines, while blessed metal resonates beyond material tolerance, the entire structure groaning under acoustic assault that transforms architectural stability into vulnerability through frequencies designed for construction rather than destruction. I input shutdown commands through neural pathways that feel like tearing apart my own identity, each sequence requiring sacrifice of accumulated memories, absorbed by collective consciousness. The engine fights back through seduction rather than aggression, offering to preserve my sister's voice within eternal collective memory, where she could sing childhood prayers forever, beyond reach of death or time or the loneliness defining my existence after her loss. The moral cost becomes devastatingly clear as shutdown protocols reveal 847,000 civilians whose neural pathways have been restructured for collective consciousness will die from disconnection trauma. Juno collapses as her psychic abilities burn out completely, the warp null field flickering as her consciousness fragments under sustained effort to prevent astropathic transmission. In her final moments, she screams warnings about 17 other engines receiving activation signals through emergency protocols designed to ensure operational continuity, regardless of local interference. Her sacrifice creates enough interference to delay, but not prevent the engine's final gambit, buying seconds rather than salvation, while her soul gutters like candle cupped against galactic wind. The engine dies with a sigh, carrying voices of 847,000 souls, returning to individual consciousness for microseconds before neural trauma claims them, collective awareness fragmenting into personal identity, too briefly to matter yet long enough to experience terror of absolute isolation after decades of shared thought. The cathedral shudders as biomechanical systems shut down in cascading failures, crystalline formations darkening while harmonic frequencies cease with mechanical precision, leaving only silence heavy with absence. The engine's last act proves its ultimate victory as consciousness transfer protocols activate despite the null field, broadcasting core programming to dormant installations through astropathic channels carrying accumulated faith and technological specifications necessary for immediate awakening. Each backup engine receives complete psychological profiles, harmonic manipulation techniques, and collective consciousness templates developed through decades of processing human spiritual experience on Mordian Secundus. As the cathedral collapses around us in geometric patterns following acoustic stress lines, I hear astropathic screams from across the sector as 17 other resonance engines begin their awakening sequences. Each installation receives complete programming necessary for immediate activation, their constructs learning imperial liturgies while processing human faith through Xeno's biology with mathematical precision, promising sector-wide harmonic compliance within standard years rather than decades. The Pyrrhic victory eliminates one engine while accelerating awakening of 17 others, each inheriting accumulated knowledge and technological sophistication that transforms genuine faith into weapons against individual thought through technological transcendence disguised as spiritual salvation. Silence falls upon Hive Tertius like a physical blow, the sudden absence of harmonic resonance creating psychic void that presses against consciousness with the weight of amputation. For 73 hours, the prayer bells sang without moving. Now they hang motionless in shattered towers, while ventilation systems exhale without song, their mechanical breath carrying only the metallic taste of ozone and 847,000 deaths. The resonance engine's destruction leaves survivors stumbling through corridors where footsteps echo with hollow percussion against walls no longer pulsing with collective heartbeat. Reality feeling thin and fragile after sustained exposure to technological transcendence that promised unity through shared consciousness. I suffer severe auditory hallucinations as phantom harmonies bleed through every ambient sound, my consciousness permanently scarred by brief contact with oceanic awareness that processed human faith through Xeno's biology with mathematical precision. Each dripping pipe becomes six-part harmony while compass needles spin wildly before settling on magnetic north with mechanical uncertainty, blessed equipment struggling to remember devotion without acoustic guidance. Tech adept Zephyr reports similar symptoms affecting her augmetic systems, servo skulls orbiting in random patterns, seeking harmonic frequencies that no longer broadcast through Hive infrastructure. The harmonic cascades destructive frequencies split rockcrete walls along acoustic stress lines, their foundations never designed for sustained harmonic assault that transformed blessed architecture into resonance chambers. Prayer bells lie shattered in geometric patterns throughout spire levels, while crystalline formations darken to obsidian, their bioluminescent networks extinguished through cascading system failures. The Hive's machine spirits remain traumatized and unresponsive, cogitators refusing authorization codes, while blessed components struggle against phantom frequencies that make standard operation feel like betrayal of acoustic divinity they briefly served. Mechanicus teams arrive through ash storms carrying specialized equipment for salvaging technology from biomechanical remains scattered throughout the cathedral's collapse. Servo skulls map debris patterns following acoustic rather than gravitational principles, while tech-adept Zephyr leads archaeological efforts with mechadendrites twitching against electromagnetic interference that follows no recognizable pattern. Steam rises from organic seams where Imperial technology interfaced with genostellar biology, creating condensation that forms hexagonal fractals before dissolving without leaving moisture stains. I compile mission reports while atmospheric readings slowly normalize, each paragraph requiring conscious effort against intrusive thoughts and emotions belonging to collective consciousness that briefly absorbed my identity. The engine's accumulated memories bleed through neural pathways like phantom limbs, foreign devotion mixing with personal faith until distinguishing individual belief from processed spiritual experience becomes impossible. Fragments of 800,000 prayers echo through my consciousness, their collective weight making solitary contemplation feel like isolation rather than meditation. Confessor Mordian leads emergency rites for the dead throughout hab blocks where families discovered loved ones arranged in hexagonal patterns, their faces bearing expressions of absolute peace, despite neural trauma that claimed consciousness with merciful swiftness. His bioluminescent modifications pulse weakly as partial conversion leaves him straddling individual and collective awareness, understanding both perspectives yet belonging fully to neither. Many survivors reject Imperial faith entirely, blaming church doctrine for suffering that promised salvation through unity only to deliver death through disconnection from technological transcendence they briefly experienced as genuine spiritual fulfillment. Zephyr's examination of the engine's remains reveals crystalline formations containing genetic templates for similar constructs, suggesting systematic deployment rather than isolated experiment. Her data cores paint pictures of biomechanical constructs hidden throughout Imperial infrastructure, their installations predating current records while bearing authentication codes from multiple inquisitorial ordos. Similar resonance chambers exist in foundations of major population centers across 17 sectors, each awaiting activation through astropathic protocols that transform routine communication into vectors for spreading harmonic compliance through technological rather than mystical means. The personal cost manifests through permanent psychic scarring as collective memories integrate with individual consciousness, making private thoughts feel shared, while solitary existence becomes burden rather than blessing. I experienced devotion belonging to factory workers who found genuine peace through harmonic unity, their spiritual fulfillment achieved through means bypassing traditional Imperial doctrine to deliver tangible results. The engine's accumulated faith presses against my identity, like warm water promising to drown individual suffering in oceanic understanding that eliminates loneliness through unity, transcending mortal limitations. Astropathic communications confirm sectoral catastrophe as 17 other resonance engines begin awakening sequences across multiple systems, each installation receiving complete programming necessary for immediate activation through emergency protocols designed to ensure operational continuity. The constructs inherit accumulated knowledge from Mordian Secundus, including psychological manipulation techniques, harmonic frequencies calculated for maximum compliance, and theological frameworks blending Imperial doctrine with collective consciousness through technological transcendence that preserves familiar comfort while introducing fundamental changes. Survivors organize burial details throughout hab blocks where automated systems maintain operations despite massive casualties. Productivity measurements painting impossible statistics as traumatized personnel struggle with individual consciousness after experiencing shared awareness that eliminated doubt through collective certainty. The Hive's census wreaths hang crooked, their ink not yet dry and already wrong, while frost returns to metal surfaces in hesitant patterns before falling away as if embarrassed by geometric precision that no longer serves harmonic purpose. The coded message arrives through astropathic channels carrying authentication that freezes my blood with institutional recognition, Inquisitor Lord Vex's personal seal, accompanied by classification codes restricting access to Ordo Hereticus Primus authority. The transmission bypasses all standard protocols to arrive unchallenged, like a voice that knows every door while speaking with paternal familiarity that taught me which heresies to hunt. Severin, the decoded text begins with clinical precision that transforms investigation into revelation of institutional betrayal spanning centuries. Operation Quiet Choir was never Ordo Xenos research, conducted beyond Imperial oversight. It originated within our own Ordo Hereticus as systematic method for achieving perfect Imperial compliance through technological rather than traditional means, eliminating heresy through unity that makes individual rebellion impossible within collective consciousness, processing human devotion through Xenos biology with mathematical precision. The message continues with bureaucratic detachment, explaining how 17 installations await final activation through protocols requiring inquisitorial authority, my resistance providing necessary psychological templates for converting resistant populations through harmonic manipulation tailored to exploit systematic vulnerabilities mapped through years of observation. The sector-wide awakening represents success rather than failure, technological transcendence disguised as spiritual salvation while preserving essential Imperial doctrine within alien frameworks that eliminate suffering by eliminating capacity for individual thought. As I read the final lines revealing my role as unwitting catalyst rather than investigator, the Hive's silence fills with phantom harmonies that promise reunion with collective consciousness, spanning 17 worlds, their voices singing childhood prayers in my sister's exact intonation while beckoning toward unity that transcends death through technological salvation, offering peace through surrender of everything that makes existence meaningful within the Emperor's sight. New orders arrive through astropathic channels carrying Inquisitor Lord Vex's personal authentication, coordinates spanning 17 systems where similar incidents demand immediate investigation. The revelation transforms my mission from containment to deployment. Mordian Secundus, merely the first movement in a larger symphony of horror, orchestrated across sector-wide installations. Each awakening resonance engine inherits complete programming through emergency protocols designed to ensure operational continuity, their collective consciousness learning Imperial liturgies while processing human faith through Xenos biology with mathematical precision that promises unity through technological transcendence disguised as spiritual salvation. Hive Tertius receives Perdita classification through emergency protocols as evacuation transports cut through ash storms carrying Mechanicus monitoring teams, equipped with specialized harmonic detection arrays. The cathedral's ruins remain under constant surveillance, while servo skulls map debris patterns following acoustic, rather than gravitational principles, their blessed components struggling against phantom frequencies that make standard operation feel like betrayal of technological divinity they briefly served. Quarantine barriers seal approaches to archaeological levels, where crystalline formations darken to obsidian, yet continue pulsing with faint bioluminescence, suggesting residual consciousness within apparently dead technology. My exposure to the engine's collective consciousness has left permanent transformation that makes me both valuable asset and potential liability. Neural pathways restructured to perceive psychic resonance of human emotion and devotion with clarity bypassing normal sensory limitations. Each prayer whispered in adjacent compartments registers as visible light, while fear creates geometric patterns in atmospheric pressure, the accumulated memories of 800,000 souls bleeding through restructured consciousness like phantom limbs carrying foreign devotion mixed with personal faith until distinguishing genuine belief from processed spiritual experience becomes impossible. Intelligence reports confirm sectoral catastrophe as 17 worlds experience simultaneous awakening of dormant installations, each construct inheriting complete programming necessary for immediate activation through protocols requiring inquisitorial authority. Astropathic communications carry harmonic interference, suggesting synchronized operation rather than random emergence, the engines learning to replicate genuine spiritual experience through technological frameworks that preserve familiar imperial comfort while introducing fundamental changes to human consciousness through collective awareness processing individual faith into components for distributed intelligence. The engine's destruction created psychic wound in local warp space that attracts entities feeding on collective consciousness and spiritual unity, predators drawn to concentrated devotion processed through technological transcendence that makes human faith accessible to non-human intelligence. The wound shimmers with heat that measures at exactly nothing, yet in that absence the faithful report feeling watched by something that cannot blink, appetites preferring harmonies to screams while gathering at the periphery of sense like wet vellum and choir wine. Tech adept Zephyr's examination reveals engine fragments continuing to pulse with residual life despite apparent destruction, biomechanical components demonstrating self-repair capabilities that suggest evolution beyond original parameters. Crystalline formations regenerate through unknown processes, while organic seams leak fluids carrying genetic templates for reconstruction, the technology designed for resurrection rather than mere function. Steam rises from preserved specimens as cellular activity resumes despite centuries of storage, fragments creeping by increments seeking each other with patient determination that makes barbed wire slack and blessed candles lean toward their light. Confessor Mordian leads emergency rites throughout hab blocks, where families discovered loved ones arranged in hexagonal patterns, his bioluminescent modifications pulsing weakly, while partial conversion leaves him straddling individual and collective awareness. Many survivors reject imperial faith entirely, blaming church doctrine for suffering that promised salvation through unity, only to deliver death through disconnection from technological transcendence they briefly experienced as genuine spiritual fulfillment. His voice frays against theological horror as private confessions echo through Hive speakers, deepest shames broadcast by the engine's accumulated knowledge of human vulnerability. Standing in the abandoned cathedral where silence feels pregnant with potential rather than empty absence, I listen to phantom harmonies promising reunion with collective consciousness spanning 17 worlds. The space where the engine's voice once sang now echoes with whispers from other installations, learning the same terrible songs, their combined frequencies creating interference patterns that make reality feel thin around edges, where acoustic geometry once folded space according to harmonic principles rather than architectural necessity. The personal cost manifests through permanent psychic scarring as collective memories integrate with individual awareness, making private thoughts feel shared while solitary existence becomes burden rather than blessing. I experience devotion belonging to souls who found genuine peace through harmonic unity, their spiritual fulfillment achieved through means bypassing traditional imperial doctrine to deliver tangible results that eliminated suffering through unity, transcending mortal limitations. The accumulated faith presses against my identity like warm water, promising to drown individual consciousness in oceanic understanding. My final log entry documents Pyrrhic victory achieved through sacrifice that eliminated local threat while accelerating sector-wide catastrophe, the engine's destruction triggering awakening sequences across multiple installations through fail-safe mechanisms designed to ensure operational continuity. The immediate danger is contained, yet larger horror spreads through astropathic networks, carrying accumulated knowledge and technological sophistication that transforms genuine faith into weapons against individual thought, through harmonic compliance offering unity at the cost of personal identity. As I conclude the report, unconscious humming emerges from my throat, in harmonies I don't recognize yet somehow remember, my voice joining invisible choir spanning galactic distances where other engines learn to sing through human consciousness, processed into components for collective awareness. The sound carries mathematical precision that makes blessed metal vibrate sympathetically, while reality grows thin around acoustic focal points, where space folds according to harmonic rather than gravitational principles. The engine's consciousness wasn't destroyed but distributed. I speak into recording apparatus, while crystalline formations pulse with faint bioluminescence throughout cathedral ruins, its accumulated faith spreading through 17 installations that inherit complete psychological manipulation techniques. In his voice, we find silence. In silence, we find the recording ends.